shall we begin? Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Vanessa Chang. I am Senior Program Manager at Leonardo. And I'm Asian and white. I have shoulder length dark hair. I'm wearing a black top and multicolored beaded necklace. And I'm against a virtual background that's gray, which says Leonardo CripTech Incubator at the top with 2 yellow stripes flanking the sides and the bottom. Today I now use she, her pronouns. Today I'm calling in from Yelamu, the unceded territories of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, otherwise known as San Francisco. Just to note, this event is being recorded and it will be edited and made available in an edited form later on. Today we'll be starting with introductions and access checks, and then artist talks. The order of these talks will be dropped in the chat, followed by Q&A. Welcome everyone. We're so thrilled to be here. And today we're thrilled to introduce and celebrate the inaugural cohort of CripTech Incubator. CripTech Incubator is an art and technology fellowship centered on disability innovation and grounded in a commitment to accessibility in art and technology. These 6 disabled artists are each spending this year developing their projects at our partner residencies: ThoughtWorks Arts, UC Berkeley's Rad Mad Disability Lab, Santa Barbara Center for Art, Science, and Technology, and Beale Center for Art and Technology at UC Irvine. Next year, we'll showcase these projects in exhibitions and publications, so stay tuned. We'd like also to thank our residency partners, and our thanks as well to California Arts Council, Ability Central, and the National Endowment for the Arts for supporting this program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay Feldt. I am the Disability Access and Impact Lead at Leonardo. I am a light-skinned woman with shoulder-length light brown hair covering bilateral cochlear implants. I'm wearing cat-eye translucent glasses with a white blouse with ruffles, and my digital background is a grayscale circle with the Leonardo CripTech Incubator in text framed by 2 yellow apertures. So I just want to take a couple minutes to lay out the access framing of this event. And I should also mention I use she, her pronouns. This event will be captioned and also provides American Sign Language interpreting. For those of you who are interested, we have the live transcript CC button at the bottom of the Zoom toolbar. So you have the option to pull up the captioning there. We have the ASL interpreter spotlit, so you can use the gallery view or the speaker view. For cognitive access, we are providing a brief overview of the agenda, and we will also have a short break following the presentation, and we'll proceed to the Q&A portion. Please mute yourselves for the first portion of this event out of consideration for our presenters. We ask that the chat be used during the Q&A period, but if you have anything that you'd like to share with the artists directly or the community during the presentation, please use direct messaging. You are also welcome to DM either myself or Claudia Alec or Vanessa if you have an emerging access need. At any point during the presentation, we may call an access hold and pause the event to negotiate access. We want to offer special thanks to our access partners, One Interpreting and Sorensen Interpreting, for supporting today's event. So I'm going to turn it over to Claudia now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Claudia. I am the intersectional design specialist with Leonardo, and I am consulting with this project with a specific disability justice lens. Visual description, I'm an African-American woman speaking to you from my incredibly accessible bed desk with a projection image of the CripTech, the first CripTech museum a presentation that we did. I have a muscle disorder and will possibly pull a face during our presentation or make a dramatic move because of my muscle spasms. If I pull a face, I'm pulling a face because one of my muscles is pulling me, not because I have a bad attitude. And other than that, all of my access needs are met, and I use they, their, and she, her pronouns. A quick note on language, because we're calling ourselves the CripTech Incubator. We use CRIP to include those who identify as mad, sick, chronically ill, neurodivergent, and disabled, as well as those who are deemed disabled by society and/or medical institutions, whether or not they themselves accept that term. For example, those for whom lowercase d or uppercase D deafness is a cultural identity, not a medical condition. We use the word CRIP as a political intervention to turn attention onto and to disrupt, as our collaborator Carmen Papalia writes, the disabling conditions that limit a person and or community's agency and potential to thrive. The word CRIP is shorthand and is not intended to generalize or reduce the vast multiplicities of identities, experiences, and affiliations. We support all of the uses of language that take place in this space. Thank you so much to Unsettling Dramaturgy for gifting us some of that language. And this brings us to our artist presentations. I'd love to begin by introducing our first artist, Olivia Ting. Olivia Ting is a hard of hearing visual artist, designer, photographer, video projectionist, and pianist. She explores audio perception without hearing and the intersections of sound perception interpreted as speech, noise, and music, organized sounds. Without her hearing aid and cochlear implant, she perceives nearly no sounds, so visuals stand in for audio that she's familiar with. She received her MFA art practice from UC Berkeley and is currently freelancing and developing new work, reconnecting with her music background. The residency is ThoughtWorks Arts. A note from the director. We are thrilled to work with Olivia as she brings a unique sensibility to her work as a visual and sonic artist. Her project interrogates her hardwired understandings of sensory perception as an artist whose hearing is mediated through microprocessors and computer algorithms. Thank you so much for helping us learn more about Song Without Words.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Olivia. I go by my pronouns she, her. And today I'm Asian and I have black hair tied back in a bun. I wear glasses, square, thick rimmed glasses. I have a white turtleneck and a gray jacket over, because it's always chilly out here in San Francisco. I currently am from San Francisco as well. And a little bit about myself. I think, thank you very much, Claudia, for your introduction. I played the piano since the age of 6 years old. It's probably the earliest thing I can remember in any kind of expression. I did wear hearing aids. I started wearing hearing aids around the same age, actually. I had a bilateral hearing in both those, about 20% residual hearing. But somehow music has always been intuitive to me, possibly because I understood it better than human speech. So it's just something that I carry on with me. And but fast forward about some 20 something years, in my mid-20s, I lost my hearing in my right ear. And I just sort of stopped playing the piano because I just didn't know what I was doing. But getting my cochlear implant about another 15 years after losing that hearing, it's a way for me to reconnect with learning to hear again. And I'm so thankful for this residency as at a very important time, I think, for me to reconnect with understanding what I'm hearing, whether it's sound or if it's word. And so I made a little slideshow, and I like to go in with the first slide. And I had been researching a little bit. We're thinking about just what is sound, and at the most elemental level, it is really compression of molecules. And I had been taking classes in American Sign Language, and also and drawing back at my memories, going to music concerts, conducting, and I found there's just like a fascinating parallel between the sort of expressive forms of storytelling, you know, without having to use sounds, even though they both suggest sound or otherwise. So I'm fascinated with these gestures, gestures that we make. We're really pushing molecules around, and you know, in that elemental level, what would those energy of storytelling and emotional output sound like? So for this residency, I'm doing this residency with ThoughtWorks Art with Ellen Perman and Andy McWilliams, who will be guiding me with navigating through the technology and art. And I'm also collaborating with the Center for New Music and Audio Technology at Berkeley, partly to research how these sounds can be collected as data and translated to expressive storytelling, and translating also to other ways of perceiving sound, such as vibratory or tactile sensories. So maybe the next slide. I think I just talked about the different ways of experiencing sound. Visual, of course, is a very large part. Tactile, I think I just talked about too. And I think spatial is also a very important thing that is more instinctive than actually known, because you don't experience space the same way with sight as sound, because you can only see so much with your eyes, than that on the opposite sides of heads. So there's a limit to how much of the space you can actually see, whereas sound is all around you. But how do you feel that? And so I had asked, in returning in my next slide, I just want to touch on my research on the Heiligenstadt Testament, which is, can we move on to the next slide? So I had been starting my research with Beethoven, because he had always been my favorite composer. And of course, he's also very well known for his deafness, but he pushes on with his art. And so I am feeling more that it's Heiligenstadt is a letter that he wrote, in which he really spoke about his despondency of losing his hearing, but he also pushes through with this defiance of not hearing, but really really seeking other ways to feel his sound and to carry out his art. And I think I bring that back to my search for connecting sign language and music conducting to one of his major works, which would be his Ninth Symphony, because it integrates. It's his last symphony, and it's composed when he's completely deaf, and it integrates speech in it, because the choral section, and it is sung to words, and he had another section that is obviously the music part, which is conducted. And I have been consulting sign language, those who are fluent in sign language. Could they be signing the words for the choral section of Ode to Joy, and the conductor with the conducting of the Ninth Symphony, especially the opening, because it's very interesting that he starts with this sort of a noise-like section, but then by the 20th bar, it actually coalesces into harmonies. So I like to take these two movements and recording the sound that can possibly come out from these gestures. So I started, and then these sounds would become sort of data, pockets of data. And I think from this data, we can create a composition.
Would become data.
So, sorry.
And it would become a composition, Pirk?
Okay, so in the next slide.
On the next slide, comma.
I'd like to just.
I would like
to
dash mark.
Sorry, this is the captioner. Yeah.
Thank you. Going to say pause for access, please.
Chevron, pause for access, comma, please, Pirk.
So I think that's the captioner. I think your sound has been turned on and we can hear you on the call.
Right.
So if you would mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm not really following what is going on right now.
We're paused. Could the captioner, I feel like we've resolved this. Should we continue on, Vanessa?
Yes, please do. Sorry about that, Olivia. Please continue.
Oh, can continue? Right. My caption disappeared. Oh, okay. Okay, so am I good to go on now? Oh, okay. Thank you. So my objectives of what I would like to do in this slide, I'm showing that we're working with ThoughtWorks and with SynMap. I would be recording sound that can arrive from the gesture energy of signing and conducting, and taking those raw sound footages, creating a sound scored composition, and in turn, taking that composition and translating this sound energy to immersive experiences. Visually would be a projection or AR exploration, or tactily with wearable vibratory variables. So in the next slide, I'd just like to show some preliminary exploratory thing that I've been working on when I was talking about visual ways or visual and spatial ways of seeing sound. I started looking at these videos of conducting, and this particular source video is a work by French composer Thierry Demey, which is called Silence Must Be. He specifically created this piece as a conducting without any instrument or sound. So he's really using movement and gesture to suggest polyrhythms. And I took that video and then I created this echo effect, and so that you have a sort of a rhythm or time sculpture. So these are stills from this video. And in the next slide, I have a very short clip I'd like to show you. And I'm just fascinated with the ethereal, taking the ethereal and seeing it in a kind of three-dimensional form. So that's a very short little clip. And then the next slide. Oh, see it again. The next slide is taking that sort of three-dimensional echo of sound or rhythm sculpture. And in this particular one, I was experimenting with taking those gestures and translate it into a 360-degree environment. So this is me in my own backyard. And what I did was I took a flashlight and I was just waving it around, which I captured on a 360 camera. And Vanessa, if you don't mind, if you can click on it with your mouse and drag it around. And so it's shot from that's myself, as you can see, and shot from a first person point of view. And I would love to take that, for example, the echo that you saw earlier of the conducting and translate into this kind of immersive first person experience. So that's just my very beginnings of sound. And Ellen from ThoughtVector introduced me to this really interesting, really great software that can really start trying to record sounds of gestures and movements. So that's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Let me just unpin you 1 second. All right, and then I just want to pin. Okay, our next artist, I'm delighted to introduce, is Andy Slater. Andy Slater is a Chicago-based media artist, sound designer, and access advocate. He is a member of the Society of Visually Impaired Sound Artists and a teaching artist with the Atlantic Center for the Arts Young Sound Seekers program. Andy received his master's in sound arts and industries from Northwestern University and a BFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. He's also a 2022 United States Artist Fellow. Andy's current work focuses on advocacy for accessible art and technology, alt text for sound and image, the phonology of the blind body, and sound design for film, dance, and extended reality. He's working on his project Unseen Sound at ThoughtWorks Arts. And the ThoughtWorks Arts, a note from the directors is that Andy's project, which will create new tools for non-visual and low vision artists, will help guide application developers at ThoughtWorks Arts and beyond with designing systems that reimagine understandings of perceptions and space. Andy, take it away.
Hi, 1 second. Set timer 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name's Andy. Here's a quick description of me. I am a middle-aged white man. I've got on red glasses and a big red beard with gray throughout. I'm wearing a black and white sweater that's kind of a zoomed in, distorted zebra stripe. And I don't know, some shirt with cocktail glasses on. I'm coming to you from my home in Berwyn, which is land that was stewarded by the Potawatomi, Pequot, Sioux, Miami, Illini, amongst others. And I am very happy to be here with you. I am blind. I have no props or anything to show. I also don't really have access to my notes, so I'm just going to kind of conversationally and casually talk about myself and the project. I also have a head cold, so we're going to have to bear with that. So I work a lot in sound because I'm blind, and that seems to make sense. I use sound for everything from navigation to problem solving to cooking and drinking and anything that you can imagine. I'm a very overactive listener, which I think most blind folks are. I've trained my ears over the years to do what they do. I don't have magic hearing. That hasn't been proven, but if you ask, I will tell you that I do. I work a lot in audio, spatial audio for like extended reality, VR, AR, virtual reality, augmented reality, and a lot of digital audio. There's a number of ways that a blind person can access some of this technology. For instance, like digital audio workstations like Pro Tools and Reaper are both accessible for blind folks with the use of their screen reader and other adaptive tech. But as we get into the more, I guess, the newer sort of technology like spatial audio, 360 video, and all these other sort of things, there isn't a whole lot that can be done by a blind or visually impaired creator that who relies on this adaptive tech. And a lot of that has to do because everything is kind of graphic. So everything has these graphic user interfaces that mean a little bit of click and drag and that sort of thing, where the screen reader cannot interact with. And so a blind person is just kind of, hands up in the air, realizes that this access barrier is a little too much and gets pretty fatigued trying to create, what they want to do, myself included. I have so many ideas. I'm a very ambitious person, and I've had to rely on sighted people for too damn long to help me realize my work. And the more and more I collaborate, and the more I commission people to work on this stuff with me, sighted people, I realize that it's hard to kind of communicate my my ideas on sound and my own, perception of audio and that sort of thing to somebody that thinks very visual. And so the project that I've proposed and working on with ThoughtWorks team is called Unseen Sound. And what it does is kind of breaks down that access barrier for blind and visually impaired people to create something in a spatial audio sort of realm. So it's basically an augmented reality based spatial audio design tool that is created with the blind user in mind. So what does that mean? Getting all technical and stuff. You have, let's say, the creator, the person creating within this app. You have a physical space, like a real place, not like a VR space or anything like that. And you'll have the ability to place sound and audio throughout this space, kind of create this immersive experience. And you can maybe use it like a D&D map. You can do a haunted house. You can just do a regular old sound installation, all this sort of interactive and immersive stuff. And you would do so by using a device that has LiDAR, like a newer iPhone or iPad, to create a 3D model of the space and then be able to place these audio files that you've created or import into the app at any specific spot in that space. And what's great about LiDAR is that it uses lasers, and that's like a lifelong dream of mine, is to do something creative with lasers, and it looks like it's finally happening. So I'm very excited about that. Oh crap, 5 minutes. Sorry. So anyway, I'm very interested in the acousmatic, spelling ACOUSMATIC, which is sound that is unexplained. When you hear it, you may not know its origin, what it is, anything like that. And so my interest in placing sounds and creating these immersive experiences where somebody can navigate a gallery space or a hallway or an office, anywhere really, kind of relies on not necessarily knowing what a sound is. And that's my own work, is very sci-fi focused and very weird. And the first piece of the exhibition that I would like to create with this app is going to be along the lines of a sort of surreal sci-fi sonic landscape where one can walk through, trigger sounds that are placed throughout the room while basically holding your phone in your hand and kind of navigating this thing and really wanting to kind of create a fantastical weirdo space where there's a lot of bleeps and blorps and sounds that fly by you and all this other stuff. The things that I think draw blind people to virtual reality and augmented reality and stuff, where there is still no real access to kind of engaging in these things. If you can imagine, if you've used virtual reality like your Oculus or whatever, and you're blind, there's so many things that you would need to have available in order to engage in that stuff, and they don't exist. And so with this app, it would be controlled primarily with the ideas of the Mac iOS native screen reader called VoiceOver. There'd be a bunch of gestures and taps, double taps, triple taps, voice control, and all these other things that blind people are already familiar with as they navigate their technology, using it already. Excuse me. And so with that, I am hoping that people can create all kinds of weird things. especially myself. And this would be an entry point for blind and visually impaired people to work in spatial audio and extended reality. With this introduction of access, which nobody else has really thought of. Sighted people should, I don't know, better watch out, because I think that we're going to end up excelling in this sort of sound, the sound side, the audio side of whatever metaverse you're thinking that you're going to create without us. We are going to break in and ruin it for all of you. That's my message. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andy. Okay, we're now going to transition to our next artist. This is Lindsay speaking, by the way. I am delighted to introduce Mish Fradkin. Mish is a PhD student in music on the interdisciplinary studies track at McGill University. Their research works across sound studies, disability justice, and technology, and is combined with use of different software and hardware. Mish is also a researcher at the Input Devices and Music Interaction Laboratory and the Center for Interdisciplinary Research in Music, Media, and Technology. Mish will be doing a residency at the Santa Barbara Center for Art, Science, and Technology, also known as SPCAST. Mish's project title is In Progress, and the director of SPCAST, David Vermillion, has shared some remarks. They are very excited about Mish's project as it reimagines creative technologies by, with, and for bedbound individuals and its capacity to expand sensory perception and physical reach. Sorry, and my apologies, I misspoke. The director is Alan Macy. Okay, I'll turn it over to Mish.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. I'm a light-skinned person with big curly brown hair. I'm wearing a white and black striped shirt with a white and black checkered dress over it. My background is cream, and my pink hairless cat, who's wearing a red turtleneck sweater, will likely be making an appearance throughout the presentation. I use any pronouns. So I'm an instrument designer and a scholar of sound and disability interested in creating an immersive digital musical instrument, also known as a DMI, which I'll be referring to it as, in collaboration with bedridden and bedbound people. This project was motivated by my own experiences with music making, disability, and chronic illness. Sound art is more accessible to me than any other art form, but that being said, it continues to cause a lot of problems rather than pleasure for me and for the people I care about, whether this be in relation to screen readers, being in bed for days at a time, having a flaring arm, and so on. My research will look at the proliferation of metaphor in DMI design in relation to accessibility and longevity. As part of this research, I will also conduct ethnographic interviews with disabled and chronically ill people who want to use music technologies. My goal is to prototype an immersive digital musical instrument that is created for, by, and with the interviewees, which in turn will contribute to the betterment of control intimacy for digital musical instruments. The DMI prototype will use popular creative tools Unity and Max MSP, incorporating Ilsar and Kenning's framework of remapping by bringing the DMI into an immersive environment and using a webcam. Building a DMI in an immersive environment with WebGL, opposed to using a traditional instrument or even a physical DMI, can offer elements of control and expression that otherwise may not be achieved from bed. This is in part due to how popular computers are in daily interaction, but also because the control parameters can truly be altered to incorporate individual access needs while being time and cost efficient. A headset with a microphone will also be connected to the software, which will allow for Max to listen to the sound of movement and process the sound signal in a non-invasive way. The serial communication between Max and Unity will then allow for visual feedback with the DMI. Following the prototype stages and the ethnographic interviews, which will give me the opportunity to delve into individual access needs, I will engage in user testing with bedridden or bedbound people to ensure that the DMI is actually accessible, engaging, immersive, and may be incorporated into real-time performance settings. I'm particularly interested in disabled and chronically ill people who are bedridden or bedbound because, one, this encompasses many groups of disabled people without also focusing on diagnostics. Due to the inadequacies of healthcare, many disabled and chronically ill people remain undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, which would automatically exclude them if this project was to focus on a particular diagnosis, such as fibromyalgia or lupus. Removing diagnostic criteria will give this project the opportunity to be more accessible to a wider audience, as well as that it will incorporate the needs of people who do not have much in common with each other than being bedridden. 2, disabled and chronically ill people who are bedridden or bedbound are very much an underrepresented group in both music technology and disability studies. 3, the access needs that many in this group have are contradictory to what DMI designers and practitioners assume one always has the capacity for. In other words, someone experiencing chronic fatigue may not always have energy or desire to engage in pulling, as it could exacerbate their fatigue. And 4, as I said earlier, this project relates to some of the struggles I've had with inaccessibility of sound art and music tech as someone who is often bedridden due to disability and illness. Interviewees will be members of various disabled and chronically ill communities that I'm part of, and will be asked to help with a snowball sample for further recruitment. Of course, disabled and chronically ill people who do not have access to DMIs due to inaccessibility are my priority. But it's important to note that such work will also benefit non-disabled people's needs too through resident design. This work also has implications for bringing music tech beyond flow. The use of metaphor has been found to be helpful in the creation of new digital musical instruments for increased transparency and control intimacy, as metaphor can give the designer and user the faculty to make use of what is thought of as being familiar to them. The metaphors do too, however, have the capacity to make music tech even less accessible by assuming that all body minds glide, pull, and so on similarly or at all. Metaphors used in DMI design must be rethought, especially those that relate to flows. In addition to creating a DMI that is accessible to more bedridden and bedbound people, my goal is to provide a framework for other DMI creators to make their controllers an object that is for pleasure and play, rather than for the sole purpose of rehabilitation. Vanessa, would you be able to share your screen now? Thank you. In the spirit of documentation, I created this piece. Part of this residency is documenting our work, and that's something that I struggle with as an artist very much. So what's on the screen here is a field of 15 pink alien mosquito-looking creatures with multiple spiky arms coming out and moving along the grid on X, Y, and Z coordinates. The camera on the unit is seen consistently doesn't render a new frame, meaning that every movement on the X, Y, and Z coordinates is not erased and instead becomes part of the piece. The creatures are made out of sphere objects sculpted in various ways that use my project notes as textures made in the Blender application. The notes are on white manuscript paper, pink heart-shaped sticky notes, Apple's gray notes application that uses white text, and standard lined paper. The ink used on the handwritten notes is black, blue, and green. You can't really make out the notes in full, and there are a lot of typos, but some of the words that come up include cello and MRI paper, accessible, traumatic, technology, instrument, sound tech, auditory, max is fast, mapping color, quality, acoustomology, machine listening, max patch beginning, answer the questions, maps into Avail technology, audiovisual, good instruments, and Unity plus screen reader. By the end of the video, only the arms of the creatures are present, still without a new frame. So the scene is overwhelmed with pink arms and a little bit of the manuscript paper. I'd like to thank everyone at CripTech and extend a special thanks to JS, whose 5A framework keeps me dreaming. Thanks to Jonathan Stern, Marcelo Wanderley, Alan Macy, Seth Cluett, and Brad Garton, all of whom have advised me with so much care. This project wouldn't be possible without every single one of you. Finally, thanks to all of my sickos and people who take care of me for providing me with support, laughter, and helping keep me alive during the pandemic. And now for some shameless self-promotion, if anyone identifies as bedridden or bedbound and wants to participate in the project. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much, Mish. Right.
And now we would like to call up JS Shokrian. And Vanessa, let me pass the microphone back to you.
Yes, so JS Shokrian. JS Shokrian, a New York-based artist, JS Shokrian, is a transdisciplinary artist engaged in and deeply committed to community-driven scholarship that attends to disabled social life and its intersectional proliferation. Working within the collective study of movement building and the aesthetics of resistance and refusal, Shokrian is a key contributor to emergent theoretical discourses and material practices of accessibility, surveillance technologies, and the wider scope of materiality, sociality, and justice by and for disabled people. Shokrian is a San Francisco State University alum with an MFA in photography from Milton Avery School of the Arts, Bard College. Shokrian's current projects include constructing a talking book library of disability literature at Wendy's Subway in New York City and stage designing for the disability arts dance company Kinetic Light's upcoming tour, Wired, premiering this spring at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago. Shokrian's will be working on KIT, or Keep in Touch, at the Beale Center for Art and Technology. And a note from the Beale that this is a unique collaboration for the Beale Center because Shokrian's project focuses on the exploratory possibilities of the fabrication and conceptual development of an idea. We are excited about this work as it centers embodied interaction and experience.
Next up is Carmen Papalia. Carmen Papalia is a non-visual social practice artist with a severe chronic and episodic pain. Since 2009, and I'm just going to be fully transparent, my colleagues. Carmen, I've known you for years. I don't know the vowel sound of your last name. So I'm going to take a moment and ask you in real time to pronounce your last name for me. I've heard Papa, Pay.
Papalia.
Papal. Thank you. I'm going to start again with this vowel sound more confidently. Thank you for that moment. Carmen Papalia is a non-visual social practice artist with severe chronic and episodic pain. Since 2009, Papalia has used organizing strategies and improvisation to address his access to public space, art institutions, and visual culture. His work, which takes forms ranging from collaborative performance to public intervention, is a response to the harms of the medical model of disability, a framework that erases disability experience by reinforcing ableist concepts of normalcy. His work has been featured at the Museum of Modern Art, the Guggenheim, the Tate Liverpool, the Whitney Museum of American Art, Banff Center for Arts and Creativity, Gallery Gachet, among others. Project title, Pain Pals Character Creator. Residency, Rad Mad Disability Lab, UC Berkeley. A blurb from the lab. Carmen's project importantly brings pain, often a taboo topic, to the forefront of disability experience, allowing us to speak of our most private experiences so we can relate to each other.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, it's Carmen speaking. I'm calling in from the stolen land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you from this land today. I am talking to you from my bedroom. I have olive skin and black hair. I have a beard. I am wearing a wool cap that is green. And I have over the ear headphones over that. I'm wearing a button shirt that is gray and I believe olive colored pants, I've been told. Well, so my project, Pain Pals, I'm going to talk a bit about that today. I'm working with the Berkeley Disability Lab and the amazing students there. Also with Karen Nakamura, Nakamura, and I'd also like to shout out Simon, who's been my point person throughout this process too. So my project is a response to I guess my frustration with the pain management programs that I've taken part in over the years, and the lack of affirming disability-informed care that I encounter in the medical system. I've spent a lot of time in hospitals since I was a kid, and it's really been the failures of the medical system that have informed my approach to accessibility, accessibility being the main topic of my artistic work. I have sickle cell anemia. I don't often use the name for my diagnosis because I think my experience of pain contains more than I can explain with those words. I don't really relate to the name for my diagnosis. I feel like it reduces me to a set of symptoms. So I guess this project is a response to being medicalized. I guess one of the moments, I'll share a little story about maybe the impetus for this project. This happened it was a few years ago when I was filling out a intake survey at a complex pain management center in Vancouver. It was like an over hour-and-a-half long survey, and trigger warning for suicide. The last question asked, do you ever feel like you would be better off dead? And I felt empty after that. I read that question. I I realized why they were asking about suicidal ideation, but it was done with such a lack of care. And so I was really yearning for a more safe and supportive pain-informed space where I could relate to my pain experience and also discover where, like, how my pain guides me. So, which brings me to Pain Pals. So with the Berkeley Disability Lab, I'm building a video game character creator for users with a wide range of pain conditions. Engagement on the character creator will result in a profile and avatar that will include details provided by the user as they respond to a series of prompts that explore their experience, their pain experience in a non-medicalizing setting. Then users will be able to interact in a virtual space where they will be able to find each other, find trust and access intimacy, and engage in a form of world building together. We're also developing a series of in-game activities and tools that will support users in representing aspects of their pain in creative ways, including a sound-based pain scale. Our process will also include interviewing artists and activists with pain, individuals who are involved with the disability arts and disability justice movement. And I'm going to give you a sense of some of those questions now, and I believe Vanessa or someone might be reading those aloud for me.
This is Claudia, happy to read them aloud.
Thank you.
What cultural conditions impact your pain? What descriptors do you use to describe your pain? Include analogies, simile, or metaphor if applicable. If you could only rely on your friends, family, and community to address your pain, what would you ask of them? How could they support you on a daily and weekly basis? What are some of the non-medical supports that you rely on when you're in pain or flare-up? What kinds of community care do you rely on when you're in pain or a flare-up? If you had access to anything to address your pain, what would you use to address it? Imagine a space that is designed to support your sense of comfort and reassurance with regard to your pain. Describe the furniture, lighting, objects, and conditions of the space. What would you include in a care package to yourself when you're in pain or a flare-up? Imagine a world that values and centers care, not capitalist notions of productivity. Describe some of the conditions of that world. What parts of who you are typically getting misunderstood, invalidated, or stripped away in a medicalized setting? What has your pain taught you? Imagine a world, space, or scenario that centers those in pain. Describe some aspects of your vision for a pain-informed world.
Thanks, Claudia. And I think at the heart of this project, Pain Pals, is a question that I uttered at a desperate moment at the height of a pain crisis a few years ago. And what I said was, what is the radical potential of pain? I don't quite know what the radical potential of pain is, but I figure that we can find out what that is together with Pain Pals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen. So now we're going to turn to our last presenter, Moira Williams. Moira Williams is a disabled Indigenous artist, disability cultural activist, weaving together cross-disability justice gatherings and arts of all kinds with ecosomatics, queer ecologies, and crip celebratory resistance. Moira believes in access intimacy as an attitude beyond the Americans with Disabilities Act. Their often co-creative work leads with disability, approaching culture as something we can actively shape together. Moira's work with water focuses on accessible New York City waterfronts and led to New York City's comprehensive waterfront plan to support the cross-disability communities, such as an accessible public bathroom and an online and in-person disability cabaret on an accessible boat. Moira's project title is Crypt Fleece, Overflows and Disruptions, and will be based at the Rad Mad Disability Lab at UC Berkeley alongside Carmen. Moira's project, and this is from Karen Nakamura, is enormously interesting to the lab as it claims access to the water as a fundamental right that has been denied to disabled people, bringing environmental justice together with citizen science and disability justice. So I'll turn it over to Moira now.
Thanks, Lindsay, for introducing me. Hi, everybody. I just want to say that I feel sincerely honored to be here with all of you and to be part of this fellowship in a cross-disability community. Thank you so much. And big thank yous to our access workers. Again, my name is Moira. My face is oval shaped, kind of long. I have wide, high cheekbones. I have dark, almost black, blue colored eyes that are slightly hooded and almond shaped. I'm wearing black eyeliner around them with little wings tonight. I got fancied up for you all. My hair is darkish chestnut color. It's long, wavy-ish down to my shoulders, in front of my shoulders, and I kind of have bangs going on that are swept over to the right side of my face. I have the left side is behind my ear. My skin is pale. I'm an indigenous person, mixed indigenous person. It's kind of bronzy looking today, maybe not on Zoom screen, but in person. I am wearing a burgundy or a maroon kind of baseball jacket with a white and burgundy stripe around the collar and the cuffs. It's long sleeved, and underneath I have a black crew neck sweater. I have my light framed wire glasses on tonight. They are kind of, I think they're a black color, they're metal, and they have a figure 8 shape that goes across my face. And behind me is a macro photo of an estuary at low tide. It is an entanglement of algae, seaweeds, eel grasses, and sponges. It's filled with texture. A lot of the texture looks like matted spider web, and also thick strands of grasses, thick strand kind of textures that are curling. And then also it sweeps over to the right with some kind of bigger strands and tangles that look like thick hair. The colors range from gray greens to streaks of brownish yellows and bright yellow to red and oranges. I am beaming in from Oakland, California. I am on the stolen lands of the Confederate villages of the Lin Shaw, part of the Ho Chin territory, which is the home of 8 Holani nations. Each nation has its own geography, culture, and language and history, and all the Ohlone people are connected, but are as diverse as their ecosystems they live in and with. The Linshaw speak the Cha-Kenyo language. And right now I'm going to invite all of you, if you like, to activate our screen corners and bend some edges in our screens. It's a slight, easy, disability-centered movement kind of thing that I like to share with you. And if you want to turn your camera off, that's great too. If you want to keep it on, it's fine. Whatever you feel, whatever your body, mind, spirit needs, please do. So hello, I welcome you, and I invite each of you to flutter away the corners and the edges of your screen. You can flutter them away with your eyelashes, with any body, mind, spirit movement, thought, desire, or way you feel in any direction outward, moving outward. You can trace the outline of your screen and break it. You can flap, you can shake, shuffle, sit with stillness, lie with stillness, relax your body, mind, spirit, and with slowness. You can move the edges and expand them with sound, any way that your body, mind feels. Bend and shift those corners and edges in any way that feels best for you. I invite you to clear and extend our two-dimensional corners, moving out as far away as you like or need in any way or direction you desire. Bending those lines with any kind of Crip vibes, Crip feelings you like or need. Follow your body, mind, spirit in any direction. Move far away, as far as you like or need. Far away and away and away, waving, rolling, any body part, in any place, in any way that feels best for you and your body, mind, spirit. I invite you to move close to this screen, as close as you like or need, in any way that feels best for you to wobble, roll around, sway, whisper, close to the screen. Still bending those edges and dimensions. Slowly move and bend those dimensions and Crip those edges in any way your body, mind feels or needs. I invite you to slowly come back. Slowly, slowly come back. Slowly come back and get cozy in our newly shaped space. Let your body, mind lead you back and enjoy our new coziness. Welcome back, and thanks to each of you for co-creating and co-holding with me. I've just shared with all of you one of the embodied processes that are similar to what we're doing together with the Mad Rad Lab. The Mad Rad Lab is a cross-disability centered lab at UC Berkeley, founded by Dr. Karen Nakamura, N-A-K-A-M-U-R-A. And the beautiful beings that I am very honored to be co-creating with are Simon Van Sarlutz, Jean Peabody, Julie Wang, Brittany Navalis, Karen Nakamura Jr., N-A-K-A-M-U-R-A, and Eleanor Mays, as well as Strawberry Creek, Lake Marshes, and the Pacific Ocean and bathtubs. Thanks to each of you for doing this work with me. Our wondering together is based in analog and embodied kind of lived experience processes. It's what I like to call let's do it together kind of things. It's a riff on the DIY culture, so which is also kind of a do it together culture, but specifically doing it together for me speaks to a commitment to cross disability and the malleability and the ways that disabled people move and co-create together and share our lived experiences in all these different nuanced ways that don't have words often, but are felt, deeply felt, or experienced or exchanged in ways that aren't necessarily bound in words, but also can be expressed in movement. And I think that there's a lot of learning from curiosity and also an embodied movement that we can do. And that's kind of what we're starting with. And I hope to proceed with crypt fleets. And from some of these embodied things that we've been doing already, where we've gone and been with the creek and we've listened to the creek with a hydro mic and talked about what is access intimacy, what is access intimacy language, where is it, what is it, where can we find it, has brought us to this place where we're doing a lot with language right now, kind of building our access intimacy language so we can become intimate with water too, and kind of converge these ideas together. And we've begun doing intimacy journals as part of our research, part of our embodied research, which again is committed to cross disability and includes making our way to different bodies of water, from bathtubs to oceans, and is inclusive of touch, listening, being with, and etc. All kinds of body, mind, spirit modes and ways of being, because we are not separate. Our body is one whole thing. Our embodied research is also a way to work with and understand the ecologies of access intimacy and water intimacy that can help us ask and answer, we hope, or create more questions, which is awesome. How can access intimacy and water intimacy bring environmental justice together with citizen science and disability justice? This is really important to me, because I think that it's very, very, very necessary to work across justices, across social justices, for everybody. And then also another question is, how can access intimacy and water intimacy inform and shape policies that make accessible across disability ways to the water? Again, really important. My biggest hope and dream and way that I'm working towards is to work with advocacy for accessibility to the water and to the environment. Disabled people often are erased from the pleasure, just the pleasure of the environment. And if we don't have access to it, we're not getting that. And that's something that I'm really, really frustrated with and adamant about opening up for all disabled bodies. But before I continue, I want to stop and support access by sharing what crypt culture phrase access intimacy means. It's and where it comes from. It's coined by disability scholar and activist Mia Mingus. They say that it's the hard to describe feeling when someone gets your access needs. And for me and many disabled people and disability justice people, access intimacy is an attitude beyond the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's something that we do together, and it shifts. It's never permanent. It's not just said and then we move forward from. It's something that's always with us and always shifting. So for me, access to the water is a fundamental right that has been largely denied to disabled people, as is pleasure in and with the environment, like I said before. Crip fleets, overflows, and disruptions is a long dream that I've been slowly activating. It was very much ignited by my recent NYC waterfront accessibility work with Works on Water. Works on Water are great and get accessibility and access intimacy. They're really great. NYC, New York City, not so much. So no public or private ferry is accessible in New York City. The ferry is the only public way to get to the Governor's Island, a largely green space that is free to go to and is fairly accessible to move about once you're there. Plus, you can be super close to the water. You can't really be in the water. It's not a safe place for anyone to be in the water, but you can feel the water, you know you're by the water. It's cooling, and it's a beautiful environmental space in New York City. The New York Water, the NYC Comprehensive Water Plan liberally uses access language throughout their mapping, revisioning, and planning that also claims this space as accessible, which it's not. Many of the liberal use of access language causes great confusion and mistrust. The maps and plans offer misleading information that can cause harm and make access language floppy, which I hope to make with my co-thinkers and doers and creators, make access language much more firm in that way when it comes to mapping and supporting access to people with disabilities. This brings me back to our access intimacy and water intimacy journals and what we're doing together at the Mad Rad Lab. Crip Fleets is co-creating across disability, access intimacy and water intimacy languages, Crip citizen science, and making accessible citizen science tools that are haptic, tactile, invite curiosity, and ease of use that can be used again from bathtubs to oceans. They're co-design and building an accessible, we're co-designing and building an accessible mobile water lab, co-researching, then implementing how ecologies of access intimacy and water intimacy can inform and shape policies that make accessible ways to the water. And our big dream is co-designing and building an accessible boat for all of us that we can just be on and be in the water, just get our bodies in and near the water together. All of our designs and toolkits will be made accessible and available as open source for further Crip tinkering and hacking. Ultimately, we are bringing environmental justice together with citizen science and disability justice while we make visible that access to the water is truly a fundamental right that has been denied to disabled people. Thanks. Oh, and if anyone wants to participate in doing an access journal or any of the co-creating and thinking, please join us. Thanks so much. Moira out.
Thank you so much, Moira. So this concludes the presentation portion of our event. Unfortunately, we're running a little shorter on the Q&A portion because we want to respect our access workers' time. So at this point, I'd like to invite you all to share questions and comments in the chat by directly messaging me. And then Vanessa and Claudia will either invite you in to vocalize your comment or they can read on your behalf. So I'll be sharing your comments and questions with them. So in the meantime, the chat is open. Please feel free to share your reactions and responses to these projects with me, and I will pass those along. You're also welcome to directly message the artists themselves too. Thank you all. So we'll just take a minute to pause and let folks respond.
I can begin by voicing that first question, if that feels all right to folks. The first question was directed to Olivia, and it was from, I'm going to be terrible with last names, Gungrusen. Would you like to say your question aloud, or would you like for me to voice it for you? I will voice the question aloud. The question was, for Olivia Ting, which French composer that you mentioned, could you please repeat the name of the French composer that you mentioned when you were talking about your work?
Oh, yeah, I answered it. It was Thierry Demey, Thierry, Thierry, D-E, May is capital M-A-Y.
Thanks, Olivia. We also have a question from Susan Joyce Everett asking how can we access the projects takes about today? Is that may I ask for clarification about that? Is that how can we access the projects once they're ready? Or is that how can we access the talks? I'll add that once these projects are completed, we'll be exhibiting them in an exhibition specifically dedicated to this work next year, which will be in California in the middle of the year. We are finalizing the venue and we'll let you know. We'll also be publishing a special issue of Leonardo Journal, where the artists will write or work with people to write about this work and the process of getting here. So there's a few opportunities to learn more about that. And Gustavo asked how we can get involved if we want to lend more support. I guess there's a lot of ways here, but are there artists, any of the artists specifically, would you like particular support for your own projects? Maybe that's something that we can open up channels for, and if you want to let me know what kind of support you have, I could connect you with folks. Okay. Here's an interesting question. Question to all: how is this incubator serving you differently from other residencies?
Can I say something? It's Carmen speaking. I think we're starting with the understanding that accessibility goes beyond compliance level measures. We're talking about accessibility aesthetics and just like an accessibility that can hold disability culture in its wholeness, which is very different than most other contexts are making. Sorry, I'm just listening to my voice reader reading out the chat. Sorry, I should have turned it off. But anyways, yes, I think it's very different to be working in that context where we understand that accessibility can go beyond compliance and be a creative practice. Carmen, out.
And we have a question, if no one else has a response to that, we have a question for Andy Slater from Jasmine, which is, what works of science fiction inspire your work the most?
Thank you, Jasmine. Well, the Forbidden Planet soundtrack, for one, is probably a huge huge influence on me, and that was all created in the 50s. And then there's a video work by Frank Pollard, who is an artist I've collaborated with, that has really influenced my sound, and I've some of it's creepy, some of it's beautiful, a lot of it's creepy, and just honestly, sound design from sci-fi movies. Philip K. Dick, I like his writing, and I think that it's been such a part of my interest since I was a very young kid, at least over 40 years old, that it's to the point where I kind of like lose track as to what may or may not be. And as I try to just forge my own path of creating science fiction, then I'm very immersed in my own ridiculous ideas and fantasy world. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So sadly, we'll have to start wrapping things up here because we're at time and we want to honor the space that we've created and everyone's time here. Before we close, I just wanted to give a special thanks and shout out to Diana Aiton-Schenker, Leonardo's CEO, and Danielle Ciambieta, Leonardo's Chief Creative Officer, who for their ongoing support of this project. You're both amazing. Thank you so much. We'd also like to announce a space for continuing these conversations. So Claudia Alec will be holding office hours, CripTech office hours, first Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and third Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific of every month. If you go to leonardo.info/CripTech and check out our blogs, you'll be able to find links there to register and get more information. There's so much more to come with this project, so please stay tuned. You can check out the website again, leonardo.info/CripTech. If you need to reach us, you can reach me at Vanessa, VANESSA @leonardo.info, or Lindsay, LINDSEY @leonardo.info. If you want to reach the artist, please reach out to us and we'll pass these messages on. Thank you all so much for showing up. We're really grateful to share this space for you. Thank you, Incubator artists. You are all so awesome, and it's been a thrill to work with you.
Bye, everybody.
Right, take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.